Hey, welcome everybody to another GRIP-Birkman Coaches Cafe. We're going to have a fun conversation today talking about using GRIP in a church setting with a large group of people in the church setting. We have the Dave and Dave show today. Dave Lewis and Dave Lewis are joining us as father and son team that did this experience with the GRIP alone, right guys? You were just using the GRIP with the church. And I'd like for you to just launch out, just walk us through how it came about. Why did you do it? How did you get the people to come? What was the experience like? Just walk us through the whole thing, if you would, Dave.
Okay, I'll start. I should say, I don't know if any of you have had a chance to, I wrote a summary review of it. I don't know if you've had a chance to read through that or not. Since writing that, our son, Dave and I have done another GRIP assessment with his staff at Bayview Glen Church in Toronto. And so I'll let him kind of talk a little bit about how that came about. But I've kind of somewhat retired from pastoral ministry. And so I'm trying to he's shaking his head no, because I just took a contract with another church to help them through a transitional time. But anyways, I am trying to get plugged into the local church and learn to be a good church member. So our pastor at the end of last year did a series on spiritual gifts. And as I was sitting there listening, and he went through them and everything, that the question came that many people have, how do I know what my spiritual gifts are? And I was talking to some of the Alpha group leaders, and they had just had the Holy Spirit weekend. And one of the questions that came out of that was, how do I know what my spiritual gifts are? So I went to the pastor and said, hey, there's this great spiritual gifts assessment that I think could be really beneficial to the church. And so we talked about, the possibility of offering it to the congregation. He got plugged into it. As I said in my report, I asked for 3.5 hours or so to take this. He gave me 2 hours. So we went with that, had 38 people sign up. And and then went through the process with them, and so we can talk a little bit more about that, Larry. But that's how this got started in the church that I'm with. And Dave, I don't know if you want to pick up and talk about what you did with your staff.
Sure, sounds good. So after I guess if I'm being honest, I wasn't totally sure how this whole thing was going to work with a larger group of people. So I decided to use my dad and the church up north of us as a guinea pig and do a bit of an experiment with them. And I would say it was extremely successful. The thing that I was most encouraged by was how the GRIP actually gives, and we've talked about this with the Birkman before, but the GRIP gives this amazing vocabulary that we get to use with our people. So it kind of puts everybody on the same page that way. I know as a church staff, I'm at a church just in Toronto, and with our staff, we've used the Birkman, and they've all done the GRIP, but we really haven't done much with exploring the GRIP itself. And so after my dad and I were able to put this presentation together for the church up north of Midland, I decided to try it with our staff team, and it's been great. Like again, we have the Birkman common language now that we're able to talk about our needs and interests, all that kind of stuff. But now we have another layer of language to begin talking about how our spiritual gifts get expressed within the context of our team, and so that's been really good so far. So yeah.
So you guys. I'm going to refer to Dave Dad and Dave Son, since you both go by Dave or David. So Dave Dad, you did it first with your church, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you sell it to the people? How did you get 36 people to sign up that very first time?
Well, I think that the fact that we were able to tie it into the teaching of the lead pastor on spiritual gifts. So I think, by him doing a series on it, it got people thinking about it, what their spiritual gifts are, how that impacts their involvement in the church and everything. So it was kind of the series, I think, helped set us up for it. And so then when we indicated that we would offer this spiritual gifts assessment in teaching time, people were primed to want to find out what their spiritual gifts are, and so we were able to successfully piggyback on a series that the pastor had done.
So it was important to have that pastoral endorsement leading up to it.
For sure. And with him doing that series, as I've said, it really opened the door, I think, created interest. I don't know if we would have had the same response if we had just said, hey folks, we're going to offer this workshop time. I don't know if we would have gotten as many as we did. I mean, we're not a large church, probably 150-ish or so. So to have 38 people come from that, we were pretty pleased.
That's a pretty good percentage, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you offered it to them. Had the pastor and the staff gone through it before?
The pastor had a number of years ago, and so he wanted to retake it. And there's two others on the staff. They both had taken it more recently, and so they came as well. Were part of but they didn't take an instructional time. They joined in as a participant.
They participated in with the group, and were they
Yes.
active participants?
For sure, yes.
Yeah. And did that help the people to respond more, to open up more, you think?
I think it was, and a number of the elders signed up and took the course too. So I think the people, realizing that the leadership was committed to this was important.
Yeah.
We advertised in the service, the weekend services, and so that we built some credibility, I think, by having the leadership sign up.
Yeah. And Dave's son, when you went over to Bayview to your church, had the staff done, you said you led the staff through this yourself first, right?
Actually, my dad and I, we went to Midland first, so his church first, came to Bayview second, and our entire staff team has gone through both the GRIP and the Birkman. And within the context of our staff, we're around 20, and so it's a good group. It's a good size group to go through things with. Like I said before, we had done the Birkman, and we spent actually quite a bit of time going through the Birkman itself, but we hadn't spent the same amount of time going through the GRIP, kind of more of a cursory glance at it. So this was like the first deep dive that we did as a staff into our GRIP itself.
Why do you think it is that more attention was being given to the Birkman than to the GRIP before?
I think the reason for the Birkman and more attention given to it was because, I mean, there's all this stuff going on, like, hey, we have all these kinds of personality assessments, like the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, all that kind of stuff that help us, that seek to help kind of people understand themselves so that they can work together better. As a staff, we had experienced a lot of turnover during COVID. I'm sure if you're in church on a church staff, there was probably some similar things. So we just felt that it was good to take people through the Birkman, because when we talk about the Birkman, I never talk about it as a personality assessment. As I mean, you guys are all know, this is an assessment that helps us understand, what our strengths are, what our needs are, what do we need from our environment in order to be successful, in order to be true, our true selves. And so I think that's why we spent more time there, because it was the Birkman actually, I would say, and if you've taken the Birkman training, you get this, that it accelerates the relationships and the understanding between staff people quite significantly. And that's actually what we've experienced. And as we've built our teams and within the staff, the different areas, knowing what each other needs from one another to be at their best, it's just been a real eye opener. I mean, we make a lot of Birkman jokes, right? Because, oh yeah, you're so blue, like, it's like all those, all those things. So, so I think the Birkman, going through that first, kind of gave us a baseline, built some trust. We were able to kind of see more or less where people were coming from. And now that we're, as a team, we've come together, now we're starting to figure out, hey, well, how does God, how do our spiritual gifts get expressed amongst us now? And so it's kind of a step two, I guess, in learning how to work together.
Are there any plans to introduce GRIP to the larger congregation? Yes,
actually, in September, our church is going to be running during that month. I don't know what, if you guys are in church ministry, I know that September is always like a big kickoff month. We do a little bit of that kickoff, but most of our stuff happens after Canadian Thanksgiving. So that's like the second weekend of October. So September is a month where people are just kind of getting reoriented to life after the summer. And so we're running a month of courses. And we're looking at making the GRIP one of those courses so that people can choose from. And it'll be spread out over 4 weeks. We'll have 4 weeks instead of having two hours to run through it. So we'll be able to even do a deeper dive. And I know some of the new assessments that have come out with the GRIP Plus, the values and that, I'm looking at those too to say, hey, are these things that we could actually incorporate into this time as well to do an even deeper dive?
Great. Now here's one for really both of you from the larger congregation. I mean, 36 people, 20 people on staff. The size of the groups was not that significantly different, but thinking in terms of, as you dug into the GRIP, what were some of the significant ahas that came out from the group?
Well, one of the things that we talked about and thought would be really important, we didn't want to just keep this at a head knowledge. We wanted to be able to develop it and help people see how this practically, how having an understanding of your spiritual gift mix impacts how you serve in the church. And so in order to help them deal with that, we related a lot of the exercises that we did to the mission statement of the church. How does what you see here and the various gifts that are represented, what does that say to you about the Spirit preparing us as a church to explore this mission we believe that Jesus has us on? And so we tried to incorporate the exercise into some practical outcomes in the local church setting. So we did that. We gave them kind of an assessment around the. We divided them into their team styles. We did the floor exercise first with the spiritual gifts. One of the things we found there was that there were groups of people who had certain gifts, and so rather than having each person share their gift, we had the groups share, the definition of gifts, and then talked about it, and that seemed to work. Then we went into the team style and bodybuilding roles, and gave them an exercise there, for the teams to work together on. And one of the things that was, and I describe all this in the summary, one of the things that was really interesting in that exercise was how people realized their need for different people in the group. And so, we had them saying, yeah, we had this let's go person, and he really kept our group moving forward. And others were saying, yeah, we had this supporting releaser, who just came alongside of us and encouraged us and helped us. So we saw how they began to talk in terms of the language through that exercise. And so that was kind of inspiring, encouraging to us.
And Dave, son, what about some ahas that came there?
I think for us, again, I mentioned the commonality of language to be able to talk about the gifts and how they get expressed amongst us that's always a win for me. Anytime we can get everybody on the same page, that was great. I think one of the, and this was even for me personally, just going through the material that describes the team styles and the bodybuilding roles, and understanding like that the team style is kind of like an internal posture. Like this is kind of how we kind of the posture that we come into a group with. And then our bodybuilding roles are really like how the gifts and our team styles, how they get expressed in community. And so why that was a real aha for me is because I was able to start to recognize me. So like my bodybuilding role is a vision sharer. All right. And so like, I love to rally the troops. I love to get, people on the bus and like say, hey, let's go. We're going to do this thing. And, I've had some people on my team that have been like values keepers and let's be careful, those type. And I've found myself like, those are the people that I get frustrated with. And because I'm like, you guys are like drag anchors, man. You're raining on my parade here. Like, this is brutal. Like, come on, get with the program. And so going through this stuff and recognizing the fact that, hey, no, these people, they're not drag anchors. They're not people that are weighing the vision down. They're not stopping the progress. Actually, they're a resource that needs to be harnessed. Their voice needs to be heard, because I found that as I actually started to pay more attention to people who were the let's be careful, the values keeper type, that it actually accelerated the rate at which we were able to get things done. And the reason for that was because they ask better questions than I do. They think about more details than I do. And yes, it might get tedious at times, but they're the project people. They lay out, they lay the kind of the tracks that we're going to run on. I can see the big picture at the end. I just don't necessarily pick the easiest route to get there, where when you lean into the people on your team that have these different team styles, and that you're just able to kind of chart a good course forward. And so, yeah, so that's been an aha for me, just as we've been working this out with our team and talking.
Might not run into as many dead ends that way then, huh?
100%. Yeah. We chalk up the wins along the way. It's actually really cool to look back and say, oh my goodness, like, look at this. This is a win. This is a win. This is a win. And we have fewer, losses or detours that we have to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you seen any significant change that has happened because of this? Any changes in ministry? Any people finding their place in ministry that maybe didn't have it before, or anything else like that? So what's different now because you did this?
I can speak from my staff perspective. I sometimes think that and in this, whether you're officially recognized as a pastor or you're a different role on staff, sometimes I feel like that those that don't have the upfront gifts of the equipping gifts, or it doesn't say leads powerfully from up front, in their triangle, sometimes feel like they're not as valuable to the body, right? Because they see the teachers, they see the prophets, the evangelists, they see all those people up front, and so if you're a supporting releaser, or if you have it, more, your gifts are more supporting. Sometimes I feel like there could be, hey, we're kind of second rate, like, we're not as needed, or we're not as valuable. And I think for me, for my team, and recognizing how I, like, as someone that has some of those equipping gifts, I can't actually do my job without the people that have supporting gifts. And so I was able to, with our team, for those that all of their gifts are in the supporting mix, able just to say, look, you guys don't understand how valuable you are to me, to the rest of our body. We don't get things done without you. Like, there has to be this synergy that happens. And so it really is, we've experienced, like what, Paul says in Corinthians, the hand can't say to the foot, I don't need you. Like, we need to be the body. And so that's been, for me, like, I manage a team of 5 staff, and just being able to speak those words of encouragement to them, to call out their giftedness, to call out when I see them using their gifts to move the ball down the field. That's been significant, I would say.
Mm.
I think for the larger church setting, what it did is it gave people an understanding of where they fit, and what they bring to the table, so to speak. It was interesting. The church here is very involved in the larger community. They have food bank. They have community groups that use the building and everything. And so it was interesting to see that the larger percentage of the gift mix that we saw from the church group were supporting gifts. And it kind of helped them see that, yeah, part of their mission is to bring the transformational presence of Jesus into the larger community. And so I think they were able to see, God's wired us in such a way that we have a lot of energy and synergy and reaching out to our community in practical ways. So what are some ways in which we can do that effectively and efficiently? So that was part of the discussion. The other thing from the pastoral leadership, and we did, I did encourage the people who were in the group. I said, look, as the leadership team is looking for people to plug into ministry and all, if you feel inclined, it would be good for you to share your report, your summary report, with the staff with the team, so that as they're looking for have ministry opportunities and people that they need, they have a list of potential candidates, rather than just saying, oh, well, like often happens in the church, well, we think this person would be good, so let's go and talk to them. This gives a framework for the leadership to connect with people.
So among those supporting people, do you have any administrative people who are keeping up with the lists of people with their gifts, their team styles, their bodybuilding roles, to help then plug them into ministry?
Well, it's one of the things that I've discovered in my years of ministry is that, I remember I was in a district leadership role on one occasion, and I walked into this pastor's study, and he had a whole bookcase of binders of conferences and everything that he had been to, and so often we do these things and we put them in a binder and it gets stuck on our shelf, and nothing practical comes from it. So I actually talked to the pastor. I did write a follow-up letter to every person who was in the group, and because we had some action steps for them to take at the end. So just how you doing, what, and I've had some personal interviews with other individuals who've contacted me and said, hey, Dave, like to go through this a little more in depth. So I'm trying to follow up and not just let all this exercise and the learning be lost here.
Any plans for doing this again?
Well, I've just signed a contract again for another church, and some of the elders have gone through the GRIP. They've got some new ones on the staff, and so, or on the elders board. So I'm just starting with this church. So one of the things that I'm going to do with them is to walk them again through the GRIP, the significance of it, and talk. So that's kind of on my plate right now. As far as the church that I'm a member of now, we haven't got anything further at this point planned. I mean, we'll just see how things proceed.
Yeah, I was wondering about all those members that have not done this. Is there any rumbling among them about, hey, I'd like to do this too? When are you going to offer another workshop, another class?
There was a little bit about it. There was one woman approached me. There's another church in town, actually, that she was talking with a friend who attends that church about what they did, and there was some interest that seemed to be developing there. To be honest, Larry, I haven't talked to anybody about it yet, but that may be something to. There was certainly a buzz through the church when this happened. A lot of people were talking about it and saying, how they benefited from it and all. So, but we don't have any concrete plan at this point.
So thinking about that also, would there be the possibility of training any other GRIP coaches, maybe not GRIP-Birkman coaches, but people who would be coaches just to carry people through the GRIP, since that's what you're primarily doing with the larger congregation?
Yeah, Ken, I see Ken DeMar here. He's familiar with our denominational structure, and I have ongoing conversations with some of our district leaders about making the GRIP more accessible to our churches, and certainly helping others be able to, because a lot of our pastors have taken it. In fact, in our particular district, in order to gain credentialing with the district, with the denomination, you need to go through the GRIP-Birkman assessment, and so a lot of our pastors have taken it. So there's a potential that we could pull a few of the keeners out and talk to them about doing this on an expansive basis, for sure.
And Dave, the younger, what are the plans for rolling it out there at Bayview?
Yeah, so we're hoping to offer it as a course, like I was saying, in September.
Mhm.
And then we have this isn't anything new. This is, all churches, I'm sure, have some kind of serve team recruitment process and that kind of thing. What we're looking at moving towards as we put areas of leadership where people can serve at Bayview, we're actually looking at attaching spiritual gifts to these different roles. So saying, hey, like if you want to be if you're looking at joining us as on Alpha, like being part of our Alpha course, it's like, well, we're looking for people that if you have the gift of evangelism, the gift of hospitality, those types of things. So we're looking at how we can actually when we create the roles that we have to serve at our church, how can we tie the spiritual gifts in? So what we're going to have to do then to have people figure out what their spiritual gifts are is figure out a way. And I hadn't actually thought about, expanding and bringing on more grip coaches. Like that's something that I could actually do with my church people. I could help them become grip coaches so that I don't have to sit there and go through all the assessments with everybody. But when you kind of our process for onboarding someone for a serve team, that could be part of the process that they go through, so that we have somebody that sits with them and says, hey, you have this gift mix and this would be a great place that for you to serve. What do you think of that? And start exploring those with people. But
we'll definitely be interested to hear how that works. If you can roll that out, that would be a great way to keep it rolling in the church. Mm-hmm. One more practical question from my standpoint, then I really want to open it up and let some of the other people here make comments or questions that they might have. And that is, in the ordering process, when you're actually ordering the assessments, Dave, the elder, when you were ordering for those 36 people, did you handle all of the orders yourself as the coach, or did you have them go online and order and pay for it themselves? Did the church pay for it, or did individuals pay for it? How did you do that?
Well, the church wanted to subsidize, not pay it all, but they wanted to help with the payment. They wanted people to I think they're going to pay $10 to take so to make it to simplify it, I ordered everybody's assessment and paid for it, and then I submitted an invoice to the church. They reimbursed me, and then collected the $10 from everybody who signed up. That, to me, that just seemed to be the simplest.
Yeah. Well, one last question. I said that was the last one, but I do have one more before I open it up. And the other guys, you're going to get your chance. Here comes your chance. But first, let me ask one more, because it occurs to me: did you have some really new believers? I mean, some really new believers doing this? And if so, what advice do you have about those new believers being in that?
We did. There were, I think there were a couple of people who did the Alpha course, who came to the GRIP assessment instructional time. We had, there were others who were maybe not new Christians, but they had never really given much thought to the work of the Spirit in their lives, and the gifting of the Spirit that happens. And so they were I was going to use the word intrigued, but that might not be the best word. They really got involved. They really found this to be practical, helpful, giving them an understanding of the fact that they're not just saved and that's it. There's a place for them in God's kingdom. And so this helped them grapple with that and realize that we're all on a mission, and so they have a part to play in that.
Okay.
I would just add to that, just observing the people that were at the experience up in Midland, where Dad's at. They, yeah, like, I mean, you could see how the people that were more seasoned in their faith, they kind of just wrap their arms around these newer believers or people that hadn't really considered their gifts. It was a really cool experience to watch how, regardless of where you were spiritually, in a spiritual maturity level, yeah, like this was a learning experience for everybody. And so, yeah, new believers were getting wrapped up into this conversation, which, I would say, like, that all of these new believers took another step in terms of their spiritual maturity that day, and because of that. So, yeah, it was really fun just to observe from the outside, to see how these new believers were embraced.
Excellent. All right, I really am going to open up the mics now, guys. You guys feel free to open up with any of your questions or comments that you might want to make, or any thoughts that this might be stimulating for you. Complete open mic. Well, if you open your mics, if you'll unmute, then it's an open mic.
I was wondering, Dave the son, how will you dialogue about the bandwidth of experience for the newer people, or people who've only done one or two things in the church, versus what their spiritual gifts might be like when they've had more experiences? The more we do in and for the church, the wider the bandwidth we have to have touched various spiritual gifts.
Right.
And so somebody new or has only done one or two things in the church hasn't had exposure to spiritual gifts. How will you process that for your people to realize, hey, I really need to try other things?
Yeah. I think it's talking about, I mean, when we talk about discipleship, right? I mean, that we talk about it as a journey, and that we're constantly learning. And so I think our encouragement to those who are just kind of new and exploring what their spiritual gifts are. I mean, the GRIP is I would say a great starting point. It's like when you have to go through yourself and you have to self-identify what spiritual gifts might be your primary one versus the ones that are lower down the list. It gives you, I guess, like a baseline understanding. Obviously, the gifts need to get expressed in community. So what I would say after that is encouraging them to try different areas of ministry where they can use those that kind of align with those gifts that they have. That's number one. Number two, I also think that as we get the conversation around spiritual gifts, as it becomes more part of the culture, the fabric of who we are, that, I mean, this is where we lean on one another, right? To say, hey, I've seen you share your faith in relevant ways, or ways that are, make faith accessible for others. You might have the gift of evangelism. Did that show up in your gift mix? And so that it creates just kind of this space for us as a community to encourage one another. So I would say that that's what we're thinking about going forward. We always frame discipleship as a journey. So that means, those who are new to understanding their spiritual gifts have this baseline with the GRIP, and then will engage in further conversations as they use those gifts in the context of community. I do also think that we are going to have to do a lot more teaching from the pulpit on spiritual gifts as well. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
And the reason I asked you and not your dad, who did it with his congregation, is because as I've been doing GRIPs with pastors, I've had pastors recognize spiritual gifts that they have never used.
Wow.
As a pastor. And now they're processing, what does that mean for me going forward? It's just, somebody and it's that danger. And Larry, when I went through training with you, one of the things you reminded us over and over again is spiritual gift doesn't necessarily equal a role. Yeah. And a role doesn't necessarily demand a particular spiritual gift. I remember that. But somehow in the larger church, we get men and women in roles, even paid positions, and it may not actually reflect their spiritual gifts. And then they take a tool like this and suddenly they're like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah. That's an interesting comment, and it makes sense. There was for whatever reason, why I mean, I think this was one of the reasons why there was a pastor in our not in our area who wasn't super excited to actually take the grip. I think he might have been nervous that something was going to come up and say, hey, here he is trying to preach every Sunday, and maybe he doesn't have the gift of teaching. Or I think there was like a little bit of fear and trepidation around what happens when I go through this self-discovery and I think, and it looks like, oh my goodness, I'm in a role that I'm not necessarily gifted for. That's a, it's a little bit of a come to Jesus moment for many people, I'm sure. But I think there's also, this is where, again, it's like, well, I mean, we lean into the body for support. We gotta lean into our congregation as leaders, because we don't have all the gifts. The gifts are all out there. And so if we don't activate our congregations to say, yeah, I have this gift, I need to use it, I need to get on I need to join the team and put my hand in the middle and get this stuff done. Like, then we're not effective as a body, I think. So anyway, sorry, I start to get excited about this stuff and then I start to preach. So I'm going to stop.
Oh, no, don't do that. Yeah, Mark, I think I see you unmuting now.
Yeah, excuse me. I got a question. It's actually two parts. The first one was, did you utilize the Here's What I Think About You reports anyway, either before, during, or after the process? And the second part is, do you have a plan to do this as rhythmically every so often, or as a part of an onboarding process, or as part of stepping into a servant's role? Is there a way that you're going to kind of make this part of the culture of your church from now on?
Let me ask that. We didn't. I didn't specifically instruct the people to do the "What do I think about you" assessment. I know that there were some, because it shows up on the report. There were some who did do that, and I think they found it to be enlightening, to be helpful. As far as doing it in a cultural setting, I find that I'm in a interesting space right now. As I said, the local church that we're plugged into, I'm trying to be a good member, and so I'm not in a place where I feel that I can suggest, but I can't implement an ongoing rotation of this. So I'll just drop seeds as I'm able.
Yeah, and just to answer your first question, Mark, I haven't used the those other reports that you were talking about, but built into the training session are opportunities for people to speak into the lives of the others. With our staff team, our staff is actually pretty close in terms of relationally with each other, so we could be those people for one another. The other to your second question, I would say we're at the beginnings of this journey of having the GRIP become woven into the fabric of who we are. So I speak with my hopes a little bit. Like, I know we're looking at this course, like I was saying, in September, but and then as we develop our serve profiles, connecting those to spiritual gifts, I would love to see, and I'm having a meeting actually right after this. I jump off this cafe with our lead pastor and our executive pastor, and this will be one of the things that we talk about. So, trying to figure out, like, hey, what's a path forward for us here as we seek to extend, that's we're talking about extending our mission. So how do we actually, you know, do that, and how can the GRIP be part of that process?
You, Dave, you mentioned that you did give some action steps at the end of the seminar, the course, the session. What were some of those action steps that you gave people?
Well, one of the things that I suggested was that they write out a statement, kind of their personal gifts statement, you know, utilizing their 4 top gifts, and whether they're equipping or supporting. And so I encourage them to just to make, I gave them kind of an example of my statements, so that they had something to go on. My 4 gifts are teaching, leadership, exhortation, and prophecy. And so my personal gift statement is this: my spiritual gift blend informs me that I best equip people through teaching that directs and challenges them to lead purposeful, God-centered lives. And so at the end, and one of the next steps was to encourage them to write a personalized spiritual gift statement, starting with their primary gift as a focus, and then building around it using statements that reflect the rest of their top gifts. And I encourage them to capture the intent rather than worrying about the exact words. So you know, I noticed when I was at Baby Glen church, all of the staff there has their Birkman map on the outside of their door as they came in. And so I said, you know, what would it be like to write a personalized spiritual gift statement and put that underneath your Birkman statement, so you have a full description of who you are from a natural standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint. So that was one of the action steps that I had. And so now I'm going to put my son on the spot and say, so have you followed up on that, son, Dave?
Yeah, I was just going to say we haven't done that yet. So.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. You mentioned a follow-up letter. Are you getting any indication from people that they're actually doing that? Any response coming back?
Yeah, I haven't had personal conversations with people about that. I just need to chat with our pastor and see where things are at. I need to continue to follow up on that. So good prompt, Larry. Thank you.
Anyone else? Other questions or comments?
I just wanted to ask about one thing that we've been concerned about and seen a little bit is that we create expectations. And for example, in new members who come through the GRIP seminar or course or experience, I guess I like the word experience better, because then they expect to be involved in the ministry of the church. And sometimes they have a little problem getting into ministry, having even, staff people or leadership people who are in leadership of a team contact them or get back with them about their request to be involved. And I think that's part of developing the culture of the church, where the church is embracing those new people and helping them get involved. And we need to work more on that. But do you have any insight into how that's happened at your church, or how it hasn't happened, and what some ideas about what we could do about that?
uh, this is where I'll steal the Birkman here a little bit. This is where you need your yellows and your reds to like build processes. And I'm a blue and green. That's just not my headspace. But yeah, so at our church we actually have some people that have built a process, and if you jump onto our website and you click serve, you can the process is you kind of fill out a little bit of a form, and then it comes into our Serve Central. We process it. It gets connected to a specific ministry leader who oversees an area, and then there's like an onboarding call, and it's actually a significant process that they go through, and I think that's probably that's been the best way for us to onboard people. I think so for me, as I'm walking through the foyer of the church and somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, Dave, we'd love to be involved. These are some of the areas we'd like to help out with." I'm like, "Awesome. Can you go to our website, fill this out?" And then there's going to be somebody that gets in touch with you within a week. And then we're able to, so I'm in the process of onboarding all these people for our Alpha team. And we have all these different areas on Alpha that they can serve, and understanding where their spiritual gifts are. I'm actually able to create opportunities for them and just to test them out. See, hey, here, you say you have the gift of hospitality. Here's an opportunity to be hospitable on our Alpha course. But yeah, I would say it's building the process, and then the ministry leaders have to be prepared to do some of this hard work of onboarding people, and putting them in and thinking through a little bit more creatively about how they can, after they've onboarded them, like get them into a spot that might be, and I think this is important to say, hey, this might be a good fit for you, and then see what happens, right? And I've had several people that we've put in areas of ministry based on gifts and abilities and all that kind of stuff, and it just hasn't worked out. And that's not a problem. Like, we just say to them, hey, we thank you so much for being a part of this and using your gifts and your abilities here. Would you like to try this other area? And it's, so far I've never had someone say no, because I think there's part of it where when they have been in that role that we're kind of transitioning them out of, they realize that, you know what, they weren't probably a good fit for it either. And so, yeah, so then we're able to move them to another space where we think they'd be better suited. I will say just one more thing on this. What we're developing in our church, and a lot of churches have this, like I say, this isn't new. I mean, we're probably stealing things from everybody else, but we're developing a multi-layered leadership structure, so that you start off as on a serve team. You have the ability to move up and to take some leadership on that team, and then to become a coach, and just kind of all the way up the structure. I keep telling people I'm trying to give away my job, so you can eventually work through this structure and have my position on staff, which I think would be awesome to be able to do that. But you got to build the process, and this is where, like I say, you got to lean into those the administrative people on your team, the yellows, the reds. They got to get this stuff done.
Yeah, like you said, those people with those supporting gifts really are the people who make things work, right?
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys have been pretty clear with us about your process and how it is developing out. We'll need to come back next year maybe and get a report on how things have progressed a year or so later, and to see what difference it has made. I really appreciate the fact that you gave them some concrete things to work on after the session, and the idea of a follow-up letter, and then continuing follow-up. And Dave, the idea of your serve process, I think that's especially important for churches to say. Susan, I guess what you were bringing up is that sometimes we create expectations, and that if we don't have some outlet for those expectations, all we're doing is creating frustration in those people.
Yeah.
And so we want to be sure that when we're doing this, we're prepared to say, all right, we're going to help you find your place in ministry. That's the whole point of this, isn't it? to help them find their place in ministry so that they can know that they're contributing. I have now a closing question for you. Did you do affirmations at the end of the session?
That was part of the process when they were talking about their gifts. As people shared their gifts,
Okay.
the rest of the people in the group affirm them. We ask them to look for opportunities to encourage, to affirm, and we really saw that happening. I saw it really happening with the staff at Dave's church, and so we invited that.
Excellent. Yeah.
Let me just say that we really had fun doing this, and it was neat to be able to team teach with our son, and but I think a lot of times we hesitate, maybe because we don't know how it could go or whatever. Just jump in, take the risk, because it was fun. We had fun.
Yeah. Dave, the younger, any closing comments?
Yeah, I would echo that it was fun. I know, like, let's be honest, when we're talking about spiritual gifts, sometimes it's pretty nebulous, right? Like they're, kind of, they float out there, like, how do I put this into practice? I would say, like, the GRIP actually gives the language to describe how these gifts get worked out in community. And so, yeah, like it's valuable. And like, I would just echo what Dad said, just jump in and do it. It creates its own curiosity. Really, the GRIP it does, and people they start to get curious about how other people are set up and wired, and you really I feel like it's the easiest thing in the world to facilitate. You just throw it out there, and people just start, boom, they just start engaging with it, and it's great. So give it a go.
Amen. And with that, let me say 1 month from today, a number of us will be in Orlando together in the I to We First Gathering, Set in Motion. I sure hope a lot of you are planning to be there with us. It's going to be one of those meetings. I'm convinced this is going to be one of those meetings where years later we will be saying, I was there, as we set in motion what we're talking about here. And we heard some of this coming out in your conversation, helping the church begin to change their thinking from I thinking about the gifts to we thinking. How do we work as a body? Especially that came out with the idea of the supporting gifts and affirming those people and how important they are to the ministry of the church. As we all expand our thinking from I to we, what does that mean? What kind of postures and practices do we need to be looking at to help us grow as the body of Christ and grow in unity, as well as growing in numbers and expanding across the face of the earth? So we hope you're going to be with us there. Because of that, we will be at that meeting that first Wednesday of May. We're going to postpone our Coaches Cafe until 1 week later. It'll be the very next Wednesday. So we'll have a little bit of time to do a little bit of debriefing, a little bit of what does that mean and where do we go from here. So I hope you'll be joining us for next month's Coaches Cafe as well. It'll be an exciting time, as will the meeting in Orlando. If you haven't signed up yet, I'm going to challenge you again. See what you can do to change your calendar and make arrangements to be there. God bless you all, and keep doing everything you can to keep building unity in the body of Christ so more people will know Jesus. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.